to Death and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm Courtney.
And I'm MK.
And how are you?
Well, um, just a quick summary of my life. This is a very short story, but it will probably tell you everything you need to know about where I'm at as a person right now. This morning, while sitting at my desk, trying to decide if I had enough energy to even attempt to go make myself coffee, I just kept hearing a bird yelling at me. And
Oh,
I
you
was
love
like,
birds.
and I love birds, but I was like, that's too big to be a crow. I think that's a goose. So I look out my window, and there on the roof of the school, like maybe 25 feet from my window, at the same height as my window, is a goose. Just one
On the roof?
on the roof. Very lost, does not know where the rest of its family is. It's alone. Um, and I literally looked out the window. I said, "Can I help you?" And he just turned and looked straight at me and continued yelling. So then I went downstairs because I was like, I can't continue to sit in this classroom with this goose yelling at me. Then the next period I have my eighth graders, we finished what we were doing. I had told them earlier this week that if we could get through everything we needed to, I would take them outside today. So I did. We go outside and there's like goose shit in the parking lot and everything. And so while four of the kids are playing Foursquare, the other three decided that they were going to go on a goose tracking adventure. And so they're like wandering around the parking lots looking for clues and finding goose poop and feathers and things. And at one point, one of them said, maybe if we sing a song about geese, he'll come back.
Please, what song did they sing?
I, I don't, is there a song about geese?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I didn't think so either. Um, so then they're wandering and they're standing outside the window of my principal's office talking to her. They're just having a normal conversation and everything was fine. And I could tell she wasn't angry and that they were having like a civilized conversation. So it's like, great. I turn my back for 35 seconds. And the next thing I know, she is screaming at them out the window because they decided that they were going to take all of the dried grass from the lawn mowing and build a goose nest in the middle of a parking space in the parking lot.
That ain't it.
And she screamed out the window and said that if they didn't fix it right now, they would be raking the entire parking lot with their bare hands. Um,
Sure, sure.
um, and I was like, I'm never taking you outside ever again.
Done with the outside.
Yeah, no. And that was how I started my day. And it's the first week in 2.5 months that I've had to work 5 days. And so that's about where my mental stability is at the moment.
Yeah, I get that. Um,
Yeah.
it felt like 102 degrees here today, in
No,
case you were wondering.
absolutely not.
Um, Rachel's air is not working super stellar in her car,
Right.
which is where the heat is in the car.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. No, I know. I've been in a car before.
it was really warm and I couldn't figure out what to do with myself because I was driving around because when I took her to work then I had her car and I had to wait till she got
Yeah.
off. And so I had coffee with my friend Vicky, which was really nice. I hadn't seen her since Rachel's wedding, I don't think. Like we talked, but I haven't like seen her yet.
Yeah.
So we had coffee, but then when I went back to sit in the parking lot and wait for Rachel, I thought I was gonna die of a heat stroke. I
Hmm.
did not. All is well. Um, but we were rushing because both of us are leaving. She left today to go home for Mother's Day weekend, and I leave Saturday to be gone for 2.5 weeks, which
Yeah.
is fine. Can't wait. Super excited. Um, so where did my break? So we did Girls' Day on Tuesday, which also was a little more stressful than it needed to be. We went to get our nails done. Since my nails are done, they did up.
Nice.
Here's the thing that I've learned about nails.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know anything about nails. That is what I've learned because
I
what
was like,
happened
yeah. I was like,
is,
usually you don't go to a nail salon without calling me and making sure you know what to say first. So,
right. And so what I did was the very first time I did it, I called you probably 73 times. I don't know. I know I texted you more than I called you. And I asked you how to say it and what I needed to
mhm.
ask for.
Yeah.
And I just walked in and I said, like, I made the appointment online with you. And then I got there. I emailed them. I said, this is my first time getting my nails done. So I don't know, like, if you need
Yeah.
anything else for me, basically.
Right.
Um, and so I got there and they did it and it was fine. Kind of hurt a little bit, but you told me that was normal. So I moved
Yeah.
on. And then I only went to that nail salon for the next 6 months
Right. And you
because it
just got
was
fills of the same thing.
right. And so I didn't understand that I needed to decide anything. I just went back and I was like, it's time. And they were
Yeah.
like, great, let's do it. What color do
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
want?
Yeah.
Like, no questions.
Correct.
They just did it. What I have learned, the acrylic
Yeah.
is the gel they put on there. It is a tip when they put the plastic on there.
Yes.
That is a thing that I did not know
Well,
before Tuesday.
because there is a difference between gel polish and non-gel polish, but if you are getting acrylic nails, it is yes, it is the it is wet when they put it on and it dries.
Yes. And so I thought that the acrylic was the plastic they put on your that they glued to your nail.
Yeah, no.
It is indeed not. So when the guy was asking me a lot of questions because he doesn't know me,
Right.
I had no idea what to say. I was like, I need these off and I need more on. And I did not realize until we were halfway through the nails that I was not getting plastic on my nails, which is fine. Rachel told me what to say. She was sitting beside me and she told
Yeah.
me. I looked like a 5-year-old because he would ask me a question and I would look at her. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer. So I now know all of my misconceptions because Coco in Manhattan, that was her name, didn't ask me any questions.
Yeah.
She just knew what I wanted. And I didn't
Yeah.
have to think. I just had to pick out a color. That was the only thing I had to do. So now I've learned how nails work. Um, but it was a little stressful because I felt like a 5-year-old trying to get my nails done. And then we went to Winn-Dixie and just got like fruits and veggies and had girl dinner. And
Love
we
it.
had like a plethora. We had like a plate of cheese, a plate of fruits and veggies, a plate
Yeah.
of like pizza rolls and mini tacos, and then sauces galore.
Yeah.
And
I
it
get
was
that.
wonderful. And now I won't see her for like 2.5 weeks. But it's fine. I'll be back again.
Tuesday,
So
Dan knew that I'd been having a rough couple weeks, so he made me steak and potatoes and cauliflower for dinner. And then yesterday we went to have dinner with his mom and his brother and sister. And so we had burgers and cauliflower and
mm,
green beans and like all the good stuff and mac and cheese and whatever. So then today we came to my house and my mom had made dinner and she made chicken parm. So we had spaghetti and chicken parm, but I only put half of a chicken cutlet on my plate
mhm.
because I was complaining that the chicken cutlets were too big. And Dan looked at me like, what is wrong with you? And I just looked at him. I go, how many days in a row have I actually eaten an entire dinner? And he was like, well, yeah, actually a lot. I go, so then don't fucking talk to me right now.
Yeah, we ate out last night, which was another reason I was not hungry because we went out for Nick's uncle's birthday, and so we went to Copeland's. Do you know Copeland's? Is that a thing you have?
No.
I think it might be just a Louisiana restaurant.
Mm,
But it's all over Louisiana. Like we had them in Monroe and we also have them in New Orleans.
okay.
It's fine. Everyone loves it, but I think it's just fine.
Yeah.
Um,
But you're
but
also a
it's like,
bougie New York City girl with food now, so.
well, no, like even growing up, I always thought it
Oh,
like
okay.
New Orleans still has good food because
Oh, yeah, no,
they like
It's New
season.
Orleans. Yeah.
But it's like a step above like a Chili's, Applebee's. Like it's
Mhm.
definitely better than that.
But it's not.
But
Yeah.
like I had salmon and I was like, I would have liked my salmon that I made at home better. But nobody eats salmon but me here, apparently. I'm the only one. So I only can have
Love
salmon when we go out to
salmon.
eat.
I love salmon.
Me too. Me too. It always makes me feel better.
Salmon is also Zara's favorite food. So when Brie and the girls were up here,
Besties.
we made salmon and then we also had we were gonna have gumbo, but then my dad decided not to really make gumbo. We made more of a jambalaya. It wasn't as stewy as gumbo, but
I
it
prefer
was
jambalaya.
well, me too, because I don't like the stewy part as much. So the
Mhm.
jambalaya is fine. But so we had a jambalaya, but it was alligator
Mm,
langoustine, shrimp, and can't remember what whitefish was in it, but it was like a seafood jambalaya. And,
I don't have fish in my jambalaya.
well, this was a seafood jambalaya.
That's fine. I have Cajun jambalaya.
Oh, there was sausage in it too. There, I forgot there was andouille in it, but it was chicken sausage, so
Mm,
it was for free. So,
yeah,
but yeah, it was. And Zara just kept saying, "We're gonna have alligator gumbo, alligator gumbo, alligator gumbo." That's all she said
very
all
close.
week.
Very
And
close.
I was
That's
like,
so funny.
almost. That's almost what we had, but
You are
we.
very close.
But she's 3. She doesn't quite need to understand the difference between gumbo and jambalaya quite yet.
No. And she doesn't live in Louisiana. Like
Right.
she lives in
She
Texas.
she
She's
doesn't
fine.
she doesn't live in a place where somebody's gonna call her out on the difference between
Right.
jambalaya and
Absolutely.
gumbo.
No. So but yeah, so now that we've eaten dinner,
Yeah.
we've fed ourselves, we've made it through most of the week.
Yeah.
We're thriving. So could you top me off with a little bit of extra spiritual guidance?
Sure. I decided to like not be very creative and just go to the true words of wisdom that come to me every day for the last 20 years, and that is Meredith Grey.
Okay. I was like,
Um,
where are we going?
yeah.
What words are we hearing from your brain?
No, the body is a slave to its impulses, but the thing that makes us human is what we can control. After the storm, after the rush, after the heat of the moment has passed, we can cool off and clean up the messes we made. We can try to let go of what was.
That's one of the best ones.
Yeah. All the little Meredith like monologues at the beginning and ends of episodes. There should just be I would like to buy a coffee table book that just has like scenic pictures, but with the Meredith Grey monologues.
I bet they make that. I bet
There's
that
got to be
exists.
somebody's got to, and if they haven't, I will.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
I'll publish it.
perfect. With your music publishing company.
Yeah,
It's fine.
absolutely.
Great.
Like I do everything. It's okay.
Yeah.
Well, all that said, let's let's get into this week's episode. Disclaimer at the beginning. Um, there's a lot of confusion around this episode because it was technically episode 4. But Amazon has put it as episode 5. It should indeed be episode 4 because when you watch them in the order we watch them, you are out of order. You have their scenes that are out of
Yeah.
order, and it just is what it is.
Uh,
However, it was removed. Oh, go ahead.
I would say, it because they Amazon is apparently just dumb and they put their seasons entirely based on the airing order and they
Mhm.
use that based on the IMDb air date.
Uh-huh.
So this aired after, but not
Right.
really.
Yeah. And like also really, but it wasn't
Yeah.
meant to. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't that way. So this episode is not nearly as dark as I anticipated based on all of
No.
the disclaimers because Brian
Yeah.
Fuller, for what have you, decided that this episode was too dark to air on TV. So he didn't want to release it. 4 days after episode 5, it did get released in India. So episode 5 came out April 25th. This one came out April 29th. And then whenever it did come out, it came out as like an NBC like web series that had removed a lot of content. I don't know what it was what removed, but it's fine. And then eventually like iTunes got a hold of it and released the whole thing. And so then iTunes and Amazon both had the full season, including this episode.
And
But
from what
yeah,
I can tell, it wasn't necessarily that it was uh dark per se. It's just that there was dead children in it and they didn't want to
yeah,
do that.
right. Because it also was coming out at the same time as like Sandy Hook had just happened. And so like I think
Which
it was more
I didn't
about
realize that the Boston Marathon bombing and Sandy Hook happened that close together until
Mhm.
like I mean
I
obviously
know.
I knew at the time because I was an adult, but like my brain never put that together until looking up things about this episode.
Well, thinking back, you're like, those are different years. Those are both really big events. They need their own year. No,
Right. They could
that's not
not
how
have
the world
happened the
works.
same thing. Nope, they happened like, a month apart.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah. I remember that because I was in college. In my English class, talked about both of them. We watched some
Yeah.
like tribute stuff,
Yeah,
which was really lovely.
I was getting ready to move to New York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, um, But yeah, so they didn't air it, so that has caused a ton of confusion. It is technically episode 4. I would watch it before I watch episode 5, and it is kind of dark in the sense of Sandy Hook had just happened, but it's
Not
not
as bad
nearly as dark.
as I thought it was going to be going into it.
No, no, it was fine. It was good, but it was fine. So yeah, so this is Hannibal, season 1, episode 4. Oof, which stands for egg. Now, also on Amazon, it is spelled CEUF, and that is because the dip well, diphthong.
It's not a diphthong. I don't remember what the word is because it doesn't exist in English, but
So it's not.
No, a diphthong is just is when the sounds blend together. It's not when the actual letters are physically blended
Gosh,
together.
well, they have messed me up on the internet because that's what they keep calling it. But yeah, so it's a letter that's not in English, obviously, and because of that, NBC panicked. And so they listed it as CEUF, which is why that is how it is listed on Amazon. That is, I don't know if that is a word, but that is not the word. That is the title of this episode. So,
it's because the sound is a diphthong. That's why they're calling it that. It's just that it's a grapheme that doesn't exist in English. That's all it is.
So it's fine. It's fine, NBC. We forgive you.
I don't.
I mean, this was 2013. It's a little late to be using that as an excuse. I feel like we know how keyboards work now.
Although
yeah.
I will say sometimes when I'm doing my Duolingo on my phone and I'm writing it in a different language, I'm like, bitch, I cannot figure out where that symbol is right now.
Oh yeah, I have the French keyboard as one of my alternating keyboards.
Yeah, I have the German keyboard and I have the Thai keyboard, but like I don't have the Norwegian keyboard.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, that'll do it every time. It always gets you. Yeah, so I did put it as the air date of April 29th, 2013, because it is technically the first time that it was aired. It was rated 7.7 out of 10, which, I mean, I thought it was a decent episode. I thought it, but like also, I think with so many weird things happening around it, with so much controversy, like so many like things about Brian Fuller saying he didn't care for it, I'm not surprised that it was lower.
Yeah.
The number 1 song is one of mine and Rachel's favorite duet songs, Just Give Me a Reason by Pink and Nate Ruess.
I love that song. That makes sense that song came out at that time, though, just based on where I was emotionally in my relationship at that time.
The number 1 movie is Iron Man 3.
Hell yeah.
And yeah, and the number 1 book is Whiskey Beach by Nora Roberts. Have you read that one?
I have not. I was going to say I was just finishing my junior year of college, and I literally drove home just to go to the opening night of Iron Man 3 with my brother.
That's funny. I love that. Yeah. I think I saw Iron Man 3 to drive-in.
Nice.
We did like a trio night or something. It was Iron Man 3, I think, and then Oz.
The Great and Powerful? Like the one with what's his name? James Franco? Okay.
And I don't remember what else it was. In Arkansas. So, which I learned recently that drive-in is not there anymore, which is very sad. I know.
Sad.
Real bummer. So on this day, there was a really big plane crash in Afghanistan that killed like 9 people. It was a small plane, big crash. Yeah. And everyone
that's not funny,
died
but like it's not
funny. But yeah, so that was like the thing that kept popping up, and I was like, great. But also John LaMontagne died at 93, so he did live a very long life.
Yeah.
And Michael Jordan got married.
All right.
And I was like, I thought he was married. He was.
Yeah.
And then he got divorced, and then he got married again in 2013. So
got it. That
don't know.
That would do it.
2010's Michael Jordan. I didn't keep up with him very well. So our director is Peter Medic. He is known for the 1980s The Changeling, Species 2, The Craze with a K, and The Ruling Class. Um, I don't know those movies, but they sound like they might be actually interesting to watch. They sound a little more on the psychological thrillery side, but like
Okay.
indie versions.
Yeah.
They
Nice.
won awards, so they're not like
Yeah.
bad indie. Like
Right.
Ruling Class won him like an Oscar nom or something. I've just never heard of it.
Fair enough.
Um, I have heard The Changeling. I think I saw
Is
it.
the Changeling? The Changeling is Angelina Jolie, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good one. I like that.
It is good. So he is from Hungary and he was forced to flee Hungary in 1956. He was 18 years old because of the Hungary uprising that they had. He fled to Medal.
What is this man's name again? My brain
Peter
like shut.
Medak, Medak.
Okay. My brain like turned
Um,
off when you said it.
that's okay. I do that all the time. And he also was signed by Universal Studio in 1963, and he observed Alfred Hitchcock. So he was there like in some of his big years, and he was kind of like observing him. And so that was cool. So that's why I think these other movies would probably be great. They're like, I think they were all in the 80s, maybe late 70s, but mostly 80s is when these
Okay.
movies came out. Um, yeah, so I'm very interested in knowing more about that.
All right.
Watching them. Our writer is Jennifer Schur, who is also a producer of the show. She is known for In Treatment, My Brilliant Friend, Unbelievable, and Big Love. I've only seen Unbelievable, but it was really well done.
Okay.
It's devastating, but it was really well done. My only fact about her, but also the only important
Um,
thing to know about her, she was a creator of the show The Catch. And I don't know if you've ever watched that. Best theme song. I learned a new song that I liked. It's called Strange Enough by Verity. It's the theme song. And I was obsessed. So she co-created it with Sean. It became a Shonda Rhimes show.
okay.
And so she created it and then was supposed to be a showrunner on it and then was removed or she left for creative differences. And then
Mhm.
there was only one season, and that is truly the biggest crime of anything I've ever seen because I really loved that show. So,
That was just my
so
hand.
give it a checkup if you want to see it. It's a little more like Mr. and Miss Smith heisty than some
Okay.
of Shonda Rhimes stuff.
Which is
But I
interesting.
really
Did you
love
see that that's coming out as like a TV show with Donald
it. Oh, I
Glover?
watched it.
Oh,
It's
did
great.
you? Is it great? Okay, because I just keep seeing the ads on Amazon.
That
Okay.
was my Austin show. That was my South by show.
Okay.
Yeah, highly recommend that as well. And our editor is Michael Dougherty, who's known for Land of the Dead, Diary of the Dead, Hannibal, and Survival of the Dead.
Just
If
like
you
a
did not
lot
know,
of dead stuff.
a lot of zombie stuff. A lot of zombie stuff. And a lot of zombie stuff. Hannibal. And he was the post-production supervisor for the Left Behind movie. So,
Okay.
yeah. Um,
Death, and Jesus.
what more do you need? Yeah, so that is our crew for today. But our star we're going to talk about is, as we mentioned, Lawrence Fishburne, who plays
Yep.
Jack. He is known for, if you don't know him, The Matrix Reloaded, Contagion, and Mystic River.
Mhm.
I have not seen any of those movies, but I have seen him in a lot of movies.
You've never seen The
And I,
Matrix?
no, I think I'd love it, but I haven't watched it yet.
It's good.
So it's like higher up on my list of things
Yeah.
I would watch. But some fun facts about him. He when he was working on Apocalypse Now, which I also haven't seen, he saved Emilio Estevez from quicksand,
Yes. Yes, he
which I
did.
did not know. They were just like in downtime in the Philippines. Um, he's a founding member of the Guggenheim Motorcycle Club, which is a motorcycle club that takes people to art museums. And
Yeah.
nothing better in the world. Um, in Event Horizon, they wore like spacesuits or whatever, and
Yeah.
he nicknamed his spacesuit Doris, which is my Mimi's name.
I love it.
So I loved it. Um, he is named after Laurence Olivier, um, but I think really his dad is named after Laurence Olivier, and then he was named after his dad, but
Yeah, that makes
that's what
sense.
the facts said. And then when he played Ike Turner, he actually had turned on the role like 4 or 5 times, and then Angela Bassett took on the role of Tina Turner, and he was like in. But
Mm.
then for many months after, it took a very long time for Black women not to glare at him when he walked down the street, apparently.
Well, I mean,
For playing
if you know anything about
right.
Ike Turner, you will understand why that is a thing.
Yeah, which I find very funny. Because apparently he's also like the chillest guy to work with. Like he didn't get some of the roles that he auditioned for because they thought he was too chill for the part. Like it's wild.
Which is
Um,
amazing. The thing that he's done that I haven't seen that I desperately want to see is the 1995 version of Othello, where he plays Othello
mm,
and Kenneth Branagh plays Iago.
ooh, how fun.
Right?
I love that. I love Lawrence Fishburne. He's great at everything. And of course, I couldn't get away with just one because I also do have to talk about Molly Shannon, who is our guest
Oh
star.
yeah, because she got shot in the face, so she won't be
Yeah,
coming back. But how
she
could
will
I
not
was
be coming
literally
back.
watching the credits and I was like, Molly Shannon? What the fuck? And
Yes.
then it said, and then the next one after Molly Shannon was Gina Torres. And I was like, what is happening on this show?
Well, Gina Torres is Phyllis.
Yeah, I know, but
Yeah.
I like my brain didn't put that together. I was just like, this is too many people. Too many people who are way too big to be on a TV show.
Right. So it was no, it was really funny. I saw Molly Shannon come up. I was like, what's happening? But for those of you who may not know her, she is known for Superstar, Never Been Kissed, Other People, and Scary Movie 4. And also her 6 seasons of Saturday Night Live.
Which is where
Um,
Superstar came from. But
and
obviously, my all of my social media for my entire life has been MK Superstar for no
for
reason.
a minute. Yeah. But she's incredible. She's so funny. She does have a new show coming out that she signed on for. It's in production right now with HBO.
Ooh.
And I don't know when it'll come out. It's currently in production, it doesn't have a name. So
Mm,
it's, check back in 3 years. I don't know.
right.
Um, but she is great. She did have a really tragic childhood event. She was in a really bad car crash with her family when she was little. And her mom, who was only 34 at the time, passed away. Her 3-year-old sister and her 25-year-old cousin also passed away in this crash. And so she said that she's kind of used that as her like impetus to kind of like keep her going. And it's been what really pushed her into succeeding
That
throughout her
makes sense.
career, which is
I
really
was trying to
sad.
remember what I had just watched that she was in recently. She is in or but then I found out this is not something I would have seen because it hasn't come out yet, but apparently she is signed on for some of season 4 of Only Murders in the Building.
Yeah. She most recently was in is it called I'm Not Okay or something? It came out a couple years ago. I watched it on a plane.
Yeah, but
It's fine.
I didn't watch it. I'm trying to think what I watched her in recently. But like I'm scrolling through her IMDb and I
Mhm.
it clearly isn't anything that was new when it came out because I
Oh yeah, no.
got nothing.
And my other fact about her is that she made her Broadway debut in the show Promises, Promises, which I do not know,
Love that show.
but it was next to Sean Hayes and Kristen Chenoweth. So like,
Yeah. Well, and
sure, it was
that's
phenomenal.
yeah. Oh, that that's why
What a
I knew
cast.
it because Kristen Chenoweth I was like less than healthily obsessed with.
I mean, she's really impressive though. Like,
Yeah.
I love her. Did you ever watch Trial and Error, the TV show?
No. Did you ever watch Good Christian Bitches?
No.
Oh my God, there was a show with Kristen Chenoweth in it called GCB, and it was about Texas church ladies, and it was like GCB is Good Christian
Oh, you told me
Bitches.
about that.
Oh my God, it's still my favorite thing I've ever seen.
That's amazing. Well,
I have not seen Trial and Error though.
you should watch it. It's
Okay.
she's in it too. She's so funny. All right, so let's get into it because it is getting a little late. Um, so we start with Will and Hannibal,
Mhm.
and they're talking about, Will's problems and whatnot, and we learn that
Was this boat thing already was that in the other episode also? I feel like they
mm,
oh, I feel like I saw that already. The thing
I
that
don't
he
know.
says about the boat.
I don't think so. I don't think it was the other episode.
Okay.
But he talks about that the only place that he feels safe is when he leaves his lights on and then like kind of walks out of his house. When he looks back, it looks like it's kind of like floating on a boat on an island or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's how he feels safe. And then they start talking about Hobbs again and how like he's influenced by that and everything. Um, and then he starts saying like he feels like almost like him without feeling like him. He says Marissa made him, he felt guilty. He felt like it was his fault, even
Yeah,
though
he
like Hobbs is
said,
dead.
yeah, he says like that sometimes he feels like, what if they're the same person? What if they're taking the shower at
Hmm.
the same time or like eating their breakfast at the same time? And he said that even after Hobbs was dead, he couldn't stop feeling like that.
Yeah. And so then Hannibal asked if he thought he was becoming Hobbs because he is again pushing him to the edge again this episode, like
Hmm.
always. And Will immediately like flipped on that and he was like, no, I know exactly who I am. Like, I don't think that I'm him. I
Yeah.
just feel this like weird in between. And then we get to
Yeah.
the credits. So
Yeah.
kind of a slow start. I wouldn't
Yeah. Wasn't my
too in
favorite.
on it, but it's fine. But then immediately we go to murder. So, we jump
Just,
in real hard after
and
that.
not even just like murder, but like really, really disgusting maggot
Yeah,
table murder. And I was like,
not
I
ready.
was not ready for that. No.
I did not eat during this episode though. I ate during Stargate earlier. So
Good for you.
I did think it through. But yeah, so we go to a shot where there's a ton of maggots on food on a table
Yeah.
and four dead family members who are like laying in their plates,
Gross.
which is not great.
What,
Which
what
also
a,
means they've been there for longer than like a day because there's maggots on all the food.
yeah.
Um, so that's not good. And so then Will does his rewind, which is what I'm
Yeah.
calling it. I don't really know if it's
Yeah.
called anything, so I'm calling it his rewind. And he goes back and he sits through and you see that like he's like I wasn't invited but I'm here but also like this is my table, this is my family, and like he's
Like
saying all
the
these
seat.
things,
I'm the guest of honor at this table. Like,
right?
yeah.
And then he snaps out of it when Jack calls him and we learn that it was a home invasion with no break-in, so someone came in from outside and committed this
And
murder
like
but there was no break-in.
there was like, they rang the doorbell. They were allowed to be in there.
Yeah.
And
And
though the guy who I can never remember his name who works in the lab with them, who's really annoying,
mhm.
he called it Norman Rockwell with a bullet, and I was like, I kind of
A little
loved that.
tasteless.
It
Don't
is
you? I thought it was
tasteless. No,
tasteless.
it is tasteless, but it also kind of it's
It paints a
exactly
certain picture, that's for sure.
it paints
Hmm.
exactly the picture of everything being
So
perfect,
pristine.
so pristine and perfect, but also wrong. And I loved that description. It was gauche for sure,
Mhm.
but like I was into it.
Yeah, it is actually like the perfect description for what's happening. I think it was
Yeah.
just the way he said it that I was like, I don't
I
care
mean,
for this.
it's hard because
Yeah.
you also have to think about the fact that there are literally children dead at the table, so it's fucked up. And I get that that's the whole issue of this episode to begin with. So like when you separate that,
Yeah.
it is the perfect description, but it is difficult.
I think it would have been less harsh coming from like Will, you know?
But I don't think so because with Will, it feels sociopathic. With him, it was just like a really
Mhm.
tasteless joke.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, and in the same moment, we also learned that Miss Turner died last. So that in your back pocket.
yeah.
And so then we pop over to Wolf Trap, and Hannibal is going into Will's house, which I was very concerned about
I was very concerned about it.
because he also like brought treats for the dogs. And I was like, that is exactly how people break into houses.
Yes.
Like, you know how to do that. And then he's like walking around and he like opens one of the drawers and we just see all of Will's like white t-shirts like lined up. Like,
Like rolled up and lined up in exact perfect condition,
mhm.
and nothing in the drawer is anything other than a white t-shirt and a white undershirt and a white pair of socks and a white
Yeah,
underwear. And it's like this guy is insane.
yeah. And then we learn he's building a fish hook. Um And Hannibal goes and like starts finishing it up, like tying it off and stuff. And I was like, well, he's definitely gonna know you were there then. But then we go to the crime scene again. Oh no, we go back to the crime scene. And they're talking about the family, and they're like, well, here's the thing, there's four of them, but there was another son. And it turns
turns out,
out,
oh,
yeah, that he had gone missing a year ago. And they were like, they saw him like get into a white van or something. And so they were like, either he ran away or more likely he was abducted.
and Wilson,
And
or
so,
both.
yeah.
It could have been a combination.
Hmm.
Which people take that for granted that sometimes the kid initially does want to get away and then
Hmm.
gets themselves into a bad situation.
Yep. Yep. But yeah, so they're looking at the scene, they're saying how clean the shots are, how there was no break-in and everything, and they're just, going through it
Yeah.
all. And then we go to Abigail, who we didn't see last episode because it was out of order.
Yeah.
Um, so she's looking at her scar. She's still back at the like clinic that she's staying at. And then she walks outside and she's talking to Dr. Bloom, who is, as of now, her therapist. And they're talking about like the scars, and they're talking about how she's like hiding and stuff, and like
Hmm.
all these different things.
Yeah.
She said it's kind of hard because they started like people are different ways here. They either like avoid her or they get really nosy. Like people are asking if she like kept the stained clothes where her blood was, and which these people are also going through stuff, obviously.
Right.
And she doesn't want to go to support groups because of that. She's like, I don't want to talk about this in front of people. I don't think it's helping.
Yeah.
And of course, Bloom does her best to talk her through it. And then Bloom goes to Hannibal's office and just walks in like they're best friends and is like, you got a beer? And I was like, you are not friends.
Yeah. He's like, do you have an appointment? She was like, do you have a beer? And I was like, what is happening right now?
Yeah. It was a very strange interaction, but I was like, okay, I guess we're friends now. But they're talking about Abigail's depression,
Yeah.
um, and how things are progressing. And Hannibal thinks she should be released from the clinic. And he's like, well, not like into the wild, but like just in general. And Bloom's like, I strongly disagree. And he's like, well, we
She's
keep an
like, you're
eye on her.
saying like you would take her home, but like, where is home? You and Will both need to get your shit together.
Yeah. Yeah, essentially, that's what she's telling him. Um, and then yeah, but immediately Hannibal's like, you know what? You're right. I will defer to your expertise, which
Which never
now
means
look
that he's going to defer to anybody's
right.
anything.
Which now looking back was way too easy of a give up.
Yeah,
So,
that
um,
was like gaslighting.
right. Yeah, so we jump back over to the lab where they're, examining the bodies, the families, they're talking about the ways that they all grew up. And, Beverly's the oldest child. The one of the guys in the lab is like the middle child. And then they just look at Will and they're like, you're an only child, aren't you? He was like, what does that mean? Obviously he is. Like, but
Yeah.
also like, he is just kind of like done with them. So then they talk they're looking at the picture, they're like looking through everything, and they're like, everyone seems kind of stunned. They're like shot. But then you see in Miss Turner, you see her face like forgiveness. And
Yeah.
they're like, who forgives their killer at the end? And he's like, a mom, like a mother. And
Yeah.
that is really dark. But
It's super
you know.
dark.
And so Will, of course, is like, this is Jesse did this. Like,
Yeah.
there's no
Don't
other.
don't don't know how or why, but nobody else would
Right.
have been able to infiltrate the family that neatly and get away with that.
Yeah. And been forgiven that quickly for killing the other kids.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so then we go to Hannibal and Will talking about it, and Hannibal is asking about Will's mother. And he's like, why do we ask about your mom? But we
Well, but
learned that Will
no,
never knew
but
his.
also my favorite was when he was like, "Tell me about your mother," and he was like, "Okay, that's the cheapest trick
Yeah.
in the psychology handbook ever." Like, yeah, sure, let's talk about my mom. And I was like,
Right.
"Okay, okay, deflection. Like
Yeah.
you're correct, but that's also not why you're saying that."
Hmm. Well, but also we learned that he never knew his mom. So
Yeah,
like there wasn't really a lot to talk about either.
but
But he
also
does ask
neither,
about,
did Hannibal.
yeah, because it turns out both his parents died when he was young. So he kind of he mostly grew up an orphan.
Yeah,
Um, And then we also learned that he had asked Hannibal to feed his dogs while he was gone. Hannibal did not break in,
I was very
which,
glad of that.
what a
Because
choice.
when he was walking around the house with the sausage, I literally was like, I don't trust you. And Dan was laughing at me. I go, I get that I'm not supposed to, but like also I don't. And
Yeah,
we all know I'm very conflicted about this show, but
yeah, no, it's a lot. But yeah, so he did it, and we also learned Will growing up was poor and he moved a lot, which we knew that he had like been around like boats and stuff, but then we learned that he actually moved a lot with his dad who worked on the ships. And so he was
yeah.
always the new kid at school, and he was always the one that didn't know anyone, and he was
Yeah.
a little bit weird because he had the autism, like he had a lot going on. So he just never quite fit in, which is why he's always been a loner. Uh,
Hmm.
and then we're back at Hannibal's for dinner, as we are every week. And Jack is there, and this is our first big out of order scene. Um,
Yes.
because he's like, "Are you ever gonna bring your wife to dinner?" And he's like, "One day." Obviously, she's already been. But this
Yeah.
also dispels what you said last
Yes, that
week,
was why I gasped when I saw that. I was like,
because they are talking about the
which
rabbit.
again would have made all of the dinner scenes in the other episode make more sense.
Yeah, yep. Because when they do talk about that it's rabbit and that it ran faster, but it didn't run fast enough, we get a flash scene of a man running away from someone who was trying to kill him. So didn't run fast enough. Um,
Yeah.
eek. So he is indeed feeding people to these
At least
people,
Jack.
at least to Jack, if no one else. And
But
then we just
Jack
have a
is the
quick,
only one going over to his house for fancy dinners all the time, so it could
right,
be that
which is very weird. Like,
it's just Jack, but like he's for sure conditioning Jack.
oh, definitely. And then we have a couple of small scenes where we're at Will's house and he's hanging out with his dogs. And then we see the lab and they're studying the footprints, trying to figure out, is this Jesse? Like, was his footprint the one that was found?
Yeah.
And then Jack interrupts Will's class and he's like, everyone go home. And I was like, that is once very sudden, but okay. Um, and it turns out that the prints were from a different missing kid who was 13.
Yeah.
Um, And so now they're going to go look at his family house. And what a time.
Oh my
It's
God.
Christmas. And so we have like Christmas music. Like this was the most arranged scene. And it brought me back to the Christmas episode of American Horror Story.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. That's
Um,
exactly what I thought. But it was
Same
actually like
vibes.
more deranged than the Christmas episode of
Yeah.
American Horror Story, which is a fucking choice.
Yep. And it made me think of the murder that happened, the John List murder that happened with where he killed his entire family and left the music playing.
Yes.
I don't know if music was actually playing or if it was just in the background of the show,
Yeah.
but it was deranged either way. Because of course his entire family is murdered on Christmas. They're like sitting there with their gifts and all dead.
Yeah, but
So
then it's even wilder because you see all the dead shot people, and then oh, here's the close up on a fucking child body in the fireplace. That I was not.
yep. So we're back at the lab, and we again learn that the mom was killed last. But things didn't go as planned. There was a lot of issues here.
Hmm.
Um, And so it turns out when the mom was shot with two different guns. And so when she was shot the first time, she ended up going into like spasms and because it hit like spinal
So,
cord probably just
something,
right,
yeah.
something. And then it seems that the child lost his nerve because he didn't expect to see his mom tortured and just killed, which are two different things, but
Yes.
still. And so
Yeah.
someone else
It's hard
shot
to
her.
understand because you're like, yeah, no, you can kill them, but not torture them. But no, but it's a very different visual
Yeah.
of like,
Yeah. And a lot slower.
yeah.
Um, So so somebody else kills her. And because he was not able to follow through, he was also shot and put into the fireplace. So
Wild.
I guess it is pretty dark. But you
Yeah.
know. So then we go to the diner, and there's Molly Shannon. Um, and she
With her gang of
is,
kidnapped boys.
yep, she's the culty murder mom, is what I'm calling her.
Love it.
Um, and she has, the boys around her, and it turns out that she is building her own family. And so what she does is she builds her family, and once she finds them and kind of sucks them in, so, whether it be a year, whether it be 10 months, then she turns it around and she's like, you can only have one family, so we have to get rid of your other one. And it's like their indoctrination is to kill their family, and then they're, in it.
Yeah.
Which is
Fucking
just
wild.
the craziest thing, yeah. So Will is, of course, going through all of these pictures and trying to figure out like what kids next. How do we pick out which kids are susceptible? And Beverly comes in and she's trying to talk about this guy, Willard Wiggum, who works with like miniature stuff, and
Yeah.
Will does not care.
No.
He's like not even listening.
He's like,
Because
who are we talking about again?
yeah, and he says that one of the things the kids have in common is they all seem to have like an ADHD, he thinks. Because he has already said he doesn't think it's abuse. He doesn't think they came from abusive families. It wasn't anything
Yeah.
like that. Um, and then we learned that the bullets match the bullets that we've just gotten matched the murder of CJ's mom, who was another missing kid. Um, and they said that they needed to find the Peter Pan to the Lost Boys, which was
Yeah.
such a good like
Yeah.
what's the word I'm looking for?
Allegory
Yes, such a good allegory where it was like
or
that is the
illusion
perfect
or
description.
no, illusion is the right one.
Yeah,
Allegory is usually biblical.
yeah. That was the perfect way to describe it.
Yeah.
And then we go back to the convenience store, and it's just so tense. Molly Shannon is just acting like the super chill mom. She's like, "Oh my gosh, we're fine. Thank you so much." Like, and you see CJ like
Yeah.
standing in the aisle, like creepily staring down this other kid, and then the kid, Christopher,
Yeah.
just like pees himself in the middle of the thing. She's just like, "Oh my God, this has never happened." And she's like really acting like she's a good mom because she's like, "Don't be embarrassed about this. Like, this happens. It's fine." And I was like, "You are a crazy person."
She was like, wait, that, but the one thing she said that it seemed really creepy, but
Mhm.
it answered the question of like why she picks these people is because Will was saying that there are certain ADHD medications that have issues with growth stunting. And she looked
Mhm.
at this little boy and she was like, but that's what happens to little bladders. And I was like, the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, no, she's a creep. Um, yeah. So they're back to Abigail, which it just feels really weird to have her in this episode.
I didn't love it.
I feel like it's completely misplaced. Like, even if she's somehow involved with her dad's killings, which I still don't think she is,
Yeah.
it's a really misplaced storyline. And maybe they were trying to use it to lessen the hit of
I
what
don't
was going
know.
on.
It was like
But
all of the Jack and Will stuff felt like everything that happened with Jack and everything that happened with Will felt weird and out of order because of how big the other episode was. And then everything that happened with Abigail felt like it didn't belong in this episode.
mhm.
And then everything that happened with the kids was like fucked up, but I didn't feel like there was a resolution. Like I still don't understand why she did what she did. We didn't get an answer.
Well, she did
And
it because she wanted to have a
no,
family.
no, no, I know, but like what I
Oh,
mean,
like why?
like
Why didn't
what?
she have
Yeah,
her own
like
family? Why did she want a culty one?
we psychologically profiled the children and why they were
Mhm.
susceptible to her, but we never had a profile on her and what she
Yeah.
was doing. And so like it was just nothing about the episode was satisfying.
Yeah, it was a really weird choice of plots to put together.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know. And I mean, if she turns out to have been killing with her dad, maybe this was meant to be a foreshadowing episode, and that's why it was created this way. Um,
I
Otherwise, I
mean,
don't
the
really
only
know.
thing that was the connection was the like idea of like the found family in a not safe way,
Mhm.
because then the stuff that happened with Abigail
With
with
Hannibal,
like with Hannibal and Bloom, like, and they just kept
yeah,
like switching back and forth on like really weird dialogue about families. And I was like,
yeah. But even so, I think there would have been a better way to do it. Like, I don't think
yeah,
this had to be the connection.
I didn't think so
Um,
either.
Yeah, but that to be said, we are with Hannibal and Abigail, and he is breaking her free from her clinic that she's
Yeah.
staying at. But he does tell her she cannot stay the night because she was like, "Can I stay there?" Which I understand this girl has been through a lot of trauma, but she does not know Hannibal, and she's just like ready to move in with this man. Like he's
Can someone say daddy
thankfully
issues?
right. But like my only thought is like, thankfully he's like a murderer, not a rapist. Like, because at least she's like probably safe and he
Yeah.
wants to like train her. So like psychologically she's gonna be really upset and not well. But like at least it's not like a physical abuse that she's gonna have, you know,
Yeah.
because she's
And
gonna have a lot of mental
he
damage
does seem
anyways.
to be like he's a weird character in that he clearly like obviously he has to kill people because he's a cannibal, but like he clearly
Sure.
doesn't have an inability to have social relationships.
Yeah.
So like he's a weird complex character, so she's probably not gonna die.
Yeah, because it's weird for like as a sociopath, he's not like he still has this desire to have relationships with people. He still wants to connect with people because you see him trying to do
Yeah.
the same thing with Will. You see him trying to build a weird but still connection with Jack.
Yeah.
And now you have Abigail. Like, and then he was working with like theoretically with Hobbs because he called him to warn him. Like, so he has a history of working with other people. He doesn't just work alone, which is not typical for this
Yeah.
kind of like thing. Um, but yeah, so she's still having bad dreams, of course, because she's, you know, everything bad just happened.
Yeah.
And she tells him she wants to get used to lying because she can't talk about any of this in group, and she doesn't want to talk about any of it in group. And he's like, you just have to lie about the one thing. And she's like, no, I'm lying about everything. Um, but it's fine. But she says she thinks she's a sociopath, and he tells her that she's not a sociopath, she's a survivor.
Yeah.
And well, technically, she is a survivor. I think he's using it as more of a manipulation tool than
I
as
think so.
a
I think so too, but I do think in
like,
that particular case, a lot of the things that she was worried about her
yeah.
reactions to things and her needing to keep secrets and her not like that is just trauma response. I don't know that
Well,
she,
yeah. And like if Dr. Bloom said you're a survivor, like it would be a correct thing to
well,
say to her at the time.
yes,
It's with
but
Hannibal.
also Hannibal is weirdly riding this line of being a really fucking good psychologist
Hmm.
and also being a manipulating sociopath
Right.
himself. So like there are times where he says things like that that I genuinely don't know. It's a flip of the coin. Was he saying that
It's
because that's
blurry.
actually the correct thing to say or because he needs it to be the correct thing to say?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
both.
And it's
Like,
just it's too hard to like know for sure, you know, like
yeah.
it is a close call. But yeah, so then we go back to his house and they're talking about schools, and he's like, "Oh, have you been applying to college?" And I'm like, "You are not actually her father, but okay." So he's like, have you applied to colleges?" And she's like, "All of the colleges I applied to, my dad killed someone there." So he's like, "We'll save that for another time."
He goes, oh, we can come back to college. That's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. And then, but she does say that she wants to work at the FBI. And she's like, "But they'll never let me." And he's like, "I would feel safer with you at the FBI." And
That
I
is
don't
just him
know.
being a fucking creep because I wouldn't feel
Right.
safer with her there. She's a crazy person.
Oh, yeah. Um, and then he's decided to microdose her with psilocybin mushrooms.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
don't, yeah, shrooms. That's,
with mushrooms. He did tell her before he did it.
yeah.
And he said that
Although,
it would mean she would have no more bad dreams. Um, which that doesn't feel correct with I've never
no,
done shrooms,
I have not either.
but
And I do know that what he's saying about using something like shrooms or acid or ayahuasca or any of those altering state
mhm,
drugs that and then proceeding to force yourself to have very positive interactions, it can like fix some of those cross wires. But also, if you're already at an unwell psychological point and you're at the point of nightmares, it can also intensify and enhance the images that are in your head and cause you to lose your shit. So like that's a
fine
fucking
line.
gamble. That's a
Yeah,
gamble that I would not have been willing to take.
absolutely not. Absolutely not. Um, And I also, but I don't know why she trusts him so much. Like, my God, my God. So we go back to Quantico and they have their like red string map up with all the kids and the locations and trying to figure everything out. And finally, Will's like, it's not a location issue. It's capture bonding.
Yeah.
Like, she's finding these kids based on, certain criteria such as ADHD, being a part of family already. Like, and she's finding them and capturing them and then bonding with them because they, either you do what you have to or you die. Like those are your options.
Yeah.
And, she's keeping them for a year. So she's like grooming them and keeping them like constantly, building this family.
Yeah.
So that's fun. Then we go back to Hannibal and Abigail, and she is doing the mushrooms and having flashbacks immediately to like killing the deer and skinning the deer with her dad, killing Nicholas, and like again, off to the wrong end. We have gone to the wrong end.
Immediately to what my biggest fear was.
And then she starts asking, she's like, did Dr. Bloom say this was okay, like for me to do mushrooms? And he's like, absolutely not. Like, didn't even sugarcoat it. It was just like, for sure, she didn't say
He's like,
that.
we had a difference of opinion in treatment.
Yeah.
You think?
Right. And then she, of course, doesn't feel well. Fine. And for dinner, he has decided to make sausage and eggs, which is the last meal they were preparing when her dad.
Yeah, it's what her dad was cooking when Hannibal called and said they found you.
And he was like, yeah, so it was your last meal with him, but it's your first meal with me. And I was like, this isn't good.
No.
This is bad progression.
Yeah, I don't like it.
And then we're back to the lab and we learn that they're like the brothers are looking for a mom who's looking for all these kids, but then because they grew up in families, they still want to have like a brother, a sibling. And so she's having to like piece together all these kids for her family.
Yeah.
And this is also the time when they realize their Peter Pan is a woman who is the mother.
The mom. And that's why the mom's always the one dying last in the.
Right. And they were like testing it out or something. Yeah. So they think that, Chris is next. We see the little boy that peed on himself. They think that his family is next.
Yeah.
So they go to the Hallorans, and of course, we see Chris going home. He's ringing the doorbell. His mom is thrilled that he's back.
Yeah.
And also shortly after the FBI arrives. And but Jack's over here looking like the Matrix with his like big black. I was like,
oh my God.
Why are you wearing that?
What was the size of the gun he was carrying for fucking what? You had 52 SWAT members with you and you needed a bazooka? Who the fuck are you?
In a cape? This is so unnecessary, but it's fine.
Okay, Batman.
Yeah. So they run through, and of course the quote unquote family are standing over Chris's family with guns ready to shoot them.
Yeah.
The kids.
Yeah.
And Chris immediately runs off and Will follows him. And he pulls a gun on Will, and Will does not shoot anyone. And then from behind Chris, Molly comes out and she holds him and has a gun and says, shoot him. But from the trees, our little sniper Beverly just shoots Molly Shannon dead.
Takes her out.
And so Chris does then give up and he ends up, we see him, he goes into Jack's car and Jack's sitting there talking with him and he's like, you got to answer a lot of questions. There's a lot of stuff going on. Like you can't go home right now. And all he wants is to talk to his real mom, which is very sweet and sad. And, I don't think any of these kids, except maybe CJ, are actually psychopaths.
Yeah.
I think it is truly just the capture bonding, wrong place, wrong time.
But that doesn't mean that you can just get off scot-free. You gotta
Oh, no. Well, it was the same thing with like Patty Hearst. I mean, they had to like reprogram her brain after like.
Oh, I mean, think about like Gypsy Rose.
Mm-hmm. She's
a hot mess.
She's still a hot mess. Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
She went right from prison to being a celebrity and thought that anybody thought that was going to do good things for her mental health. No thanks.
Yeah, you gotta like come down from that a bit. But yeah, so then we have Hannibal and Bloom is going off on him because he is, taken
Yeah.
Abigail. Obviously makes sense. And Hannibal just starts apologizing. Like he's just trying to be Mr. Charming.
He's like, you're
And
right. I was wrong. Also, he fucking
yeah,
lies and says he gave her Valium.
yeah. So he's like, she may be acting a little weird because she was really freaked out. And so I gave her
Half a
a
Valium.
yeah, but what's the term?
A sedative.
Sedative. I gave her something. She's like, oh my God, you gave her something. He's like, calm down. It's just a half a volume. She is fine. And so Bloom then goes in and they're like, are you hungry? Do you want to join us for dinner? And she's just like, yeah, sure. Why not? And I was like, no, everyone go home. Why?
Yeah.
What is happening? And so, but she does. And then, because of her altered state, Abigail is now seeing Hannibal and Bloom as her parents. And that really feels to be Hannibal's design because he did have a third plate set up. Um, and so now he's like trying to like blur the lines between what's real and not for her too, which is not really great for her brain. Um,
I don't love it.
and then we have Jack and Phyllis, and Jack is asking if it's too late to have kids. Phyllis says it is for her. It seems because they're in a fight. We know it's because she has cancer, and they're also kind of in a fight. But
Yeah.
regardless. And then we just see Will's house again before we wrap it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that episode. I do have a bit of a trivia for you.
Hit me with it because I already made my feelings about this weirdness of this episode.
Yeah. So Mass actually pricked his finger with the fish hook when he was like
Yeah, no, I could tell.
messing
That
around
was
with
like,
it.
nah, that was for fucking real. I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. The script name for Molly Shannon was Eva. They never said her name, but
yeah,
that was her name.
okay.
And then this is also during the time when Gina Torres and Lawrence Fishburne were married. So they got divorced in 2016 or 2000. They separated in 2016, got divorced in 17, but at
Oh,
this
okay.
time they were
They were
married.
actually married.
Yeah. So not a ton of facts, but a couple facts for you.
All right.
So who do you want to punch in the face?
Oh, Molly Shannon.
Yeah, that's fair. This is I'm gonna pick Hannibal. I was thinking about CJ because I guess it's not technically his fault, but I do think he got a little bit too far into it.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm gonna go Hannibal for
Yeah,
all of
because he
the
also did a lot of fucked
divisions.
up shit.
Yeah. So who's your MVP?
It's hard because all the like characters that we actually like on the show, their stories were all fucked up and out of order. So like I guess Bloom.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like everyone had like still did stupid things. They were
Yeah.
like, the best of the best. But Bloom is a good one. I think I'm gonna go with Jack because I
Okay.
feel like he did handle the kid situation really well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the only other one that I was considering was what's her fucking face that I still never
Beverly.
Beverly. I forget her name every
Mhm.
fucking week.
Yeah,
Yeah, Beverly is the only other one that I was like, maybe.
that was the other one I was thinking of too.
Yeah.
So yeah, do you have any predictions?
Not based on this episode because it's all weird and out of order, so
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
And it's such a one-off, like,
Yeah.
but
And because I watched it after the other one, it like I can't even make predictions based on the other one because I like threw my whole thing
I
off.
know.
So I'm gonna have to wait till I watch episode 6 and like get my brain back to where we're supposed to be.
Yeah, the only thing I can think is that I would say, with Abigail, he's gonna groom her into being his mini murderer, and she is gonna become like her dad. He's gonna use her like that, even though I don't think she is now, but I think he's going to turn her into that.
Yeah, I don't know.
But that's all I really have. So yeah, we'll see what next week holds for us. But in the
Yeah.
meantime, if you want to talk with us, you can email us deathandaliens@gmail.com. You can find us on all of the social media at Death and Aliens. I was like, I should probably give you the handle.
Yeah.
You can find me at CECloud13.
And you can follow me everywhere at EMKAY_superstar.
And tune in Sunday for our season 5 finale of Stargate SG-1.
Bye.
Bye.